Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. Welcome to English grade 7 video lectures. I'm your instructor Zia Hamid. I hope that you're doing well and enjoying good health. We are dealing with grade 7 and unit number 1 titled The Last Sermons of Nabi Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is our unit number 1. Let's see what we are dealing with today. We are going to see the competency of grammar, and this will be our lecture number 1. So let's begin by reading and understanding our students' learning outcome first. The SLO is punctuate paragraphs and longer pieces of text correctly using capitalization, parentheses, exclamation marks, full stops, apostrophes, commas, and semicolons, hyphens, dashes, and quotation marks. So, class, let's see, we have a lot of things to cover in the lecture of punctuation. This is all about punctuation. We will punctuate paragraphs or any written text or longer pieces of text correctly using the rule number 1, capitalization. We have to be very careful about capitalization, and then using parentheses and exclamation marks, full stops, apostrophes, commas, and semicolons, hyphens, dashes, and quotation marks. We are going to see all these punctuation marks in our lecture. So let's begin by understanding that this has already been learned in the previous grade. Here is a vertical linkage of this SLO with the previous grades 1. So now time to storm your brains a little. It's time for brainstorming. What do you recall, what do you remember when you hear the word punctuation? What comes in your mind? You have to punctuate your text, your paragraphs correctly. Yes, the commas, the full stops, the question marks, you use this in your answers, in your anything written material in daily life. So what else do we know about punctuation marks? Let's gather all our concepts of punctuation marks in our mind and then move forward to our lesson. Now, after doing this brainstorming session with me, you will be answering these questions. Can you add punctuation marks in this statement? The statement is, Smith asks, how long can this situation continue? Here is a sentence. You can see that there needs to be added some capitalization. We need to add some punctuation marks correctly. So can you pause the video and answer this question? Good. Now let's move forward. This will be the lecture about punctuations. Let's see how we are going to deal with it. So first, let's see what punctuation marks are for and why they are important, where we can find them, and why do we use them. So punctuation marks help make meaning clear in written text. So this is very important. It helps making the meaning clear. They show the reader where one chunk of meaning ends and another begins. It separates it, right? So also where to pause or change tone when reading aloud. So these are the three basic things that you should keep in your mind, that the punctuation marks, they are for showing clear meaning and separating the chunks of meaning. When obviously, you know, when we separate one sentence from the other one, or when we are done with a paragraph, then we begin our next paragraph. So we divide these chunks, and punctuation mark, all these marks help us in achieving this. Also, we see where do we, while we are talking, where we'll be pausing, or when we are writing something, longer sentences, we need to take a break in between, pause a little, and so on. So all these things, all these goals will be meant when you learn about punctuation marks and you use them in your text. So let's see. The punctuation marks can show the end of a sentence. Also, there are three ways when we know that the sentence is ended. They are the full stop, it shows the end of a statement. Question mark shows that the end of a, it's the end of a question, it's a end of an interrogative sentence. And exclamation mark is also indicates that the sentence is ended. It shows raised voice, strong feelings, and an exclamation. So let's see, a sentence, it starts with a capital letter, we know this very well, ends with a full stop, and it also makes complete sense. So these things are the requirement of a complete sentence. All these things should be added in a sentence in order to call it a complete sentence. Now we also saw that how we can end this the statement or a sentence by full stop, question mark, and an exclamation mark. So now let's move forward. Let's see. Now let's talk about full stop. So full stop is used to the conclusion of complete sentence. It's very easy, we already know this and we do this also. So now let's see, it is used at the end of fragmented sentence. Some sentences are not actually real sentences because they do not have subject or verbs, but they convey a complete meaning. For example, are you sure it's the best idea? The answer will be absolutely not. This is followed by a full stop. So this is when with fragmented sentences we use full stop at the end. It does not have any subject or verb, but still it's a sentence and it's making some sense. Also, full stops are added when we are talking about time. We use AM, PM to indicate the time, and we use AM full stop or PM followed by a full stop. Also, we use it after a title. Mr. Richard is a young policeman. Here, Mr. is a title which is ended with a full stop. Full stops can be used in abbreviations also to indicate the omission of letters. For example, Dr. If we abbreviate this, it will be Dr. Dr. full stop, Mr. and honors and so on. So these are the situations in which we use our full stops. Let's revise it. We use it at the end of a sentence, can be used after a fragmented sentence, or after time, title, or abbreviations. I hope that it is very clear now. So let's move forward. Let's talk about comma. So the comma is within a sentence. A comma shows where one chunk of meaning ends and another begins. So it is also used for separating the items in a list. For example, I bought eggs, comma, a pint of milk, then we add comma, tea and sugar. So when we are mentioning more than one thing, we use commas to separate it. Also, let's see separating the direct speech from a reporting clause. So we will be seeing it on the direct speech page. Also for separating of tag phrases and names. Like, this is great, isn't it? So when we are using this part, isn't it, we use comma before it. Similarly, how old are you? And you are going to name the person or mention the name. How are you? Then you add comma and then you say the name. So this is after we are done with names here also. Now let's see, separating off an introductory chunk. This is also when we use the comma. Anyway, I decided not to go. So this anyway, this part will be separated by comma. Next, 3 weeks later, James was born. So these are two parts in a sentence, and they are separated by comma. Although she was only 3, this is our introductory chunk, will be separated by a comma. Then we will say Gemma knew her tables. So this is also when we are separating the chunks, we use the comma. Next, we also use it for marking off extra information embedded in the sentence. For example, Jill, my boss, is 28 years old. So when you add some extra information, you use a comma before it and after the information. So this is all about the use of comma. Now let's move forward to our exclamation mark, which is denoted by this part or this thing. So let's understand about exclamation mark. An exclamation mark is also usual after an exclamation beginning with what or how. For example, what fools people can be. This is showing a feeling, an emotion. How well Marshall bowled yesterday. So this is like a very celebratory and a very full of emotion sentence, which will also be followed by an exclamation mark indication. So the exclamation mark, which is denoted by this sign, known informally as a bang or a shrek, is used at the end of a sentence or a short phrase which expresses very strong feeling. So this is when we use our exclamatory mark. Let's see some examples. What a lovely view you have here. This is an appreciation, a sentence full of emotion. Now, that's fantastic. This phrase is also followed by an exclamatory mark. Johnny, don't touch that. Help. Good heavens. Arg, or any noise. Hooray. Wow. All these will be followed by an exclamatory mark. But let's also understand something, that you should generally avoid using exclamation marks in your formal writing, whether you're writing a formal letter, an application, a formal any piece of writing. We must be careful about using exclamatory marks. Now let's talk about dash. Dash is denoted by this sign. A dash gives a break halfway between comma and a full stop, showing a sharp break between two chunks of meaning. For example, it was great to see you. We must meet again. So after this part, we separated this chunk with a dash. So both these chunks are main clauses. A comma cannot separate two main clauses. Hence, we use dash, marking off extra information embedded in the sentence, like we saw here in this example. So this is when we use our dash. And now let's see that the dash is a feature of informal writing which echoes speech patterns. For the formal equivalent, see semicolon. So again, it's for informal writing, but when we are in a formal setting, when we are writing something formally, academically, we will be seeing the use of semicolon, which is much better formally. So let's talk about parentheses. Parentheses are these round brackets that we call them. Parentheses show information which is extra to the main text, marking off extra information embedded in the sentence, or marking off extra facts like dates or dimensions. For example, on Monday, this is the informational extra part. The first day of our holidays, we explored the beach. So initially, if we eradicate this parenthesis, the sentence is still making sense. We are saying that when we are using this parenthesis, we are just adding extra information and to explain something that needs some information, but if we do not use it, it doesn't make any difference. So now let's see. As parentheses are very noticeable, they are used when the writer wishes to draw attention to the extra information. For example, Elizabeth 1, this is the date of birth, or Mount Everest, this is the actual height of the Mount Everest. So this is when we use our parentheses. Parentheses are sometimes called parentheses with E in it. Information in brackets is said to be in parentheses. Commas and dashes can also enclose parenthetic information. We can also use commas and dashes for this purpose also. Now let's talk about colon. It is represented by these two full stops on top of each other. A colon marks a break where there is a feeling of balance between the elements on either side. For example, to introduce a list, an example or a quotation. Now we also use them to separate two main clauses where the second clause expands on or illustrates the first. For example, it was very cold. The temperature was below 0. So these two main clauses, between that we separated by our colon. Here as well, if you read this example, I surveyed John Street, small red brick houses, an ancient church, 3 brand new bungalows, and a Victorian townhouse gone to seed. Here we also use this colon to separate the two clauses. We also have another example for you to read. Now for our semicolon, which is a full stop, and beneath it we have a comma. A semicolon gives a break halfway between comma and full stop. We use it to separate two main clauses. For example, it was a great pleasure to meet you yesterday. I hope we meet again soon. So these two clauses are separated by the semicolon. The semicolon here is like a formal version of the dash. We also use it to separate lengthy items in a list. For example, we have read this sentence before, I surveyed John Street. In this whole sentence, we use the semicolons to separate the different items. When the semicolons are used in a list, there is usually a comma before the and. So this is the use of a semicolon. It's keep this in mind, it's used in formal writing. So we are here with quotation marks. You know those quotations with double commas at the top of the word. To mark the words in direct speech, we use them to mark the words in direct speech, like hello, said the cat. So this hello is a direct speech. That's why we enclosed it with a quotation mark. We also use to show that a word is being used ironically or oddly. There were many experts in the audience. This can be said in a very ironical or odd manner. We also use it to indicate the title of a book or film or etc. The book Black Beauty was also made into a film. So this title of the book is enclosed in a quotation mark. Let's see that speech marks are also called quotation marks. We can call them speech marks as well, or inverted commas also. And they are also to show a quotation. Wordsworth wrote about an inward eye. Here we use this quotation mark to show when you are talking about a word or a phrase. The word exit is the Latin for, so when we are explaining some word or giving an origin, we use this quotation marks enclosed in the word. So now, my dear learners, you may have come across two different kind of quotation marks, single and double. So both of them are very important. Let's see an example of a double and single speech mark. Double marks are usually used in handwritten text. Single marks are often used in printed text. So this is the basic difference between these two. So like here, if you are mentioning the title of a book, you can see that we used a single quotation mark. Whereas when we are quoting, when we are giving a direct speech, when we are quoting someone, we use the double quotation marks. So let's talk about hyphen. Hyphen is, you can see it looks like dash, but dash is a little longer, hyphen is a little shorter than dash. So a hyphen links words or parts of words. For example, when a word is split between two lines of print, when they are put together to make a new word. For example, mother-in-law, Irish American, cooperation. So all these words we can see we used in one word we used more than two hyphens, and in the other one we used one. Hyphens are also used in compound nouns as well. So the hyphen differs from the dash in that you do not leave a space between the words and the hyphen. It is half as long. We already talked about it. So this is the basic difference between a hyphen and a dash. So let's talk about apostrophe. Apostrophe is used for these two purposes. First, it's used for omitting the extra letters, and it is also used for possession. So by omission we mean when we are using contractions. For example, will not, if we use contraction we make it won't. So after WON we use an apostrophe and then we write T. So will not will be won't, could not will be couldn't. So that's when we use the apostrophe when we are omitting words or when we are using contractions. So these are some examples. Also for showing possession, like if we talk about Ali's car, so the letter here after ALI, we use an apostrophe to show possession of the object, here car, that we are talking about. For example, S shows ownership, apostrophe S shows ownership. Similarly, like Ali's car, we have an example, the girl's coat. So the coat belongs to the girl, that's why we use apostrophe S to show the possession of the coat to the subject, which is the girl. The children's home, and also if the owner noun is a plural ending in S, just add the simple apostrophe. For example, if we are saying or writing students' learning outcome, so the apostrophe will only be added after S to show with the plural form of students. So if you want to show possession with a plural noun, you just add apostrophe at the end. You don't need to add an extra S after the apostrophe. Like this example, the girls' coats or the princesses' hats. These are some examples. Now, after being done with apostrophe, we are going to talk about the capitalization. We have like 10 rules for making the capitalization and using them correctly. Let's see them one by one. Number one is capitalize the first word in a sentence. Always capitalize the first letter of a sentence. no matter what word it is. For example, Ernest was always kind to me. Here we know that Ernest is a plural noun. It is the first alphabet of this sentence, so it has to be capitalized. You haven't told me the answer yet. Here also U is at the beginning of the sentence. It's the first alphabet of the sentence, hence it will be capitalized. Number 2 is capitalize proper nouns. We know this very well, that when we are talking about some specific people, places or things, always start with a capital letter no matter where they are in a sentence. If they are even in the middle of a sentence or at the very end, proper nouns, the first alphabet, the first letter will always be capitalized. For example, don't forget to invite James to the party. My favorite teacher is Mrs. Swenson. So you can clearly see that with proper nouns we capitalize the first letter. Let's see our rule number 3 of capitalizing. Capitalize proper adjectives. Proper nouns become proper adjectives when they describe nouns. Note that the common nouns that come after these adjectives are not capitalized. Like in the animal name German Shepherd, the G is capitalized and this will not be capitalized. So for example, I'm learning to cook French food. Just this part, this F will be capitalized. Hannah plans to recite a Shakespearean sonnet. So these are the capitalizing, the rule for capitalizing proper adjectives. Number 4 is capitalize the pronoun I. You always capitalize the pronoun I in a sentence just like a proper noun. It's only necessary to capitalize other pronouns when they begin a sentence. So whenever we are writing, when we are using this pronoun I, whether it's in the start of the sentence or in the middle, we always capitalize the letter I. So for example, I don't know about you, but I would wait for it to go on sale. So here we capitalized I, obviously because it's beginning with it's the start of the starting alphabet of this sentence, but we also capitalized I here even though it's in the middle and it's not beginning a sentence, but still we will capitalize our I. So rule number 5 will be capitalize published works. For example, capitalize all words in the titles of books, movies, poems and other creative works unless the words have 3 or fewer letters. For example, in this written work, which is also a film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, we capitalized most of these letters. Also of this short novel's title, we capitalized it, and we also capitalized some important letters of the title. Spider-Man, Far From Home, same goes with this one. So whether it's the title of a book, a film or a short story, we will capitalize it. Number 6 is capitalize the first word in a quote. The first word in a quotation should be capitalized if it's the beginning of a sentence or if the quotation is a full sentence. For example, the waiter said, "My manager will be here shortly," but he never came. So you see that the sentence is beginning from here, but we capitalized the very first letter of our quotation. So rule number 6 is very much clear. Now let's move to rule number 7. It says capitalize titles of people. Capitalize people's titles if they come before the person's name or if the titles are used instead of the person's real name. For example, I'm writing my report on President Abraham Lincoln. So see, President is a title, so you capitalize the first letter. Obviously, Abraham is the name, is a proper noun. You have to capitalize the first letter. Ask mom about the home renovation. So mom is also a title, also dad. When we are writing mom or dad, we will capitalize the first letter. So here it's my pleasure to introduce Senior Marketing Director Sam Jones. All these will be capitalized because these are the title and also the name. Number 8 is capitalize acronyms and initialisms. Acronyms where the first letter of each word comes together in a new word are always capitalized. The same goes for initialisms. For example, NASA. We know that it's an abbreviation of the American Institute. The scientists at NASA launched a new mission. So every letter of this abbreviation will be in the capitalized form. We also have examples like FIFA announced new rules for the upcoming World Cup. So every letter of this abbreviation of FIFA will be in capital letters. Rule number 9, we have capitalized historical events and eras, names of specific moments in time, whether they lasted a few minutes or millions of years, they are capitalized. For example, many species of dinosaurs lived in the Mesozoic era. So the Mesozoic era is an era, hence it will be capitalized. And we are here at the final rule number 10. We will capitalize the days, months and holidays. So be sure to capitalize days of the week and months of the year. I've got 3 meetings on Monday. We always capitalize the word for the day. Number 11, capitalize names of specific courses. Although you don't need to capitalize the names of subjects such as math or science, you should capitalize the specific name of the class you are taking. For example, you need to take algebra 2 before you sign up for trigonometry. So you are taking the names of the subject, the courses, they will be capitalized. So these are some 11 rules for capitalizing and using effective standard capitalization. Now we have a simulation video for you about understanding more about punctuation marks. For your classroom activity, we have a prompt, a question from your book. Punctuate and capitalize where needed the following paragraphs. So you will use the rules of capitalization that we learned and also the punctuation. Here a worksheet is attached for you to understand more about punctuation marks. For your homework, we have a question on write a paragraph of your own choice. Use all punctuation marks that you have learned in this class. So this will be your homework, and now we are here at the end of the lesson. We have some resources as help that there can be found in the description of the video. We have worksheet, presentation, lesson plan, question bank and also a skill sheet. All these things are added for your help. Thank you so much for listening to the video lesson. I hope that you have understood the rules and the correct way of using punctuations and capitalization. Until the next video lecture, this is your instructor Zia Hamid. Allah Hafiz.